want to welcome to another edition of Yacht Crew Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host, and I'm very pleased to welcome my next guest. He is Gary Napier. He is the owner of The Gap Counseling and the registered counselor, correct?
Correct, yes.
And
never go at me, so I run into Sarah.
And we are actually here today because we want to talk a little bit about your show that is going to be hitting YR airwaves once again, called Bro Talk. So what is it? What do you expect to achieve? And what kind of content do you think people can expect?
Very good question. So in terms of what it is, Bro Talk is brothers, men coming together. So pride in a safe space that men can speak openly, and their content is very wide. It could be about sport, it could be about work, but the heart of it is really about men having a space whereby they can share and release frustrations or any concerns, because as it's been very widely documented, I won't say now that men don't speak, because men are starting to speak. I would say men still do not speak enough. And I believe if we can create an environment, which is the aim of it, whereby it's informal, it's casual, and it provides that opportunity for men to come together and say, yes, I can share this, and also learn from each other. And rather than us men carrying it on our own, whatever we're going through, we've got a brother or brothers that we can share this with, journey with, and also set an example for the next generation after that, and change the script that it is good for men to talk. So hence the name Bro Talk.
One of the things that in my research that kind of fascinates me is that for centuries, or however long we talk about the past, but it's almost been a stigma attached to men sharing those conversations, sharing the weaknesses or sharing their fears. It's been stigmatized as something that is less manly, as it were. But that's not necessarily true. I would assume that a man that is brave enough to admit he has fears, because we're all human. It doesn't matter what gender, we're all human. I would assume that's something to be very proud of, and is quite brave.
Brave's a word men can associate with. You mentioned weakness earlier, and we don't associate with the word weak or the word struggle. And it is the script that we've been brought into, whereby men do not struggle, or you overcome, you victory, you win. And so whilst I see it as a strength, be able to share and cry, or whatever that emotion may be that needs to release, but you need to feel safe to do it and not feel judged afterwards. Yet, I would say, is a slight contradiction, Ria. You watch sport, let's say football, and you see the emotions that us men will go through over 90 minutes. It'll be laughter, it'll be hug, it'll be anger, there'll be tears, there'll be people praying, biting their nails. So in that environment with 10, 20, 30,000 other men, it's okay. We're in that space where we can be very emotional. But as soon as we step out of that arena and we return home, it's back to the cape mentality. I cannot cry, I cannot share, but it's in us, but it's where do we have permission to be that person?
It's interesting too, because women do tend to talk about their emotions and their feelings. When men get together, traditionally speaking, it's around a game, or they're talking about motocross or fishing. Or is that something that is a way for men to release their emotions as well?
The way of bonding, I would say first and foremost, bonding with other guys and having that commonality and that group conversation. And I would say sometimes that's the opposite effect. Rather than releasing emotion, it can heighten it, because you don't agree, and it can then create more tension rather than release what you're going through. But through that, occasionally then the group starts breaking up and you have your one-to-one conversations. After a while, you start feeling safe with that person. We do jog the odd things. So we may say, oh, work's a bit tough at the moment. Or we may say what we'd call a manly way. Oh, my missus is really getting on my nerves. But really what that is saying, and I've got problems at home. But we're not going to say we've got problems at home. So it's really listening to not just what they're saying, but what they want to say, but they're not expressing verbally.
There was a book years ago about women, and men are from Mars and women are from Venus or something. And it went into the details of literally the different language that men and women spoke in order to express themselves. And it's something that women didn't quite understand and men didn't quite understand about women.
Yes, very much. Regards to language, we know that relationships is based on communication. With couple counselling in particular, the root of most of the issues that couples in relationship experience is lack of communication or lack of understanding. And with us men, we're very much about often limited communication. So we'll give what's necessary, won't give any more, unless we're talking about something we're passionate about. So once what I do believe, it depends on the content, the subject. But what I would say with most of us men, we have very fragile egos. So any words that threatens our ego, we will respond to, and often not in a healthy manner. Whereas I would say our communication with women, they want detail, they want information, they want to know more, and that's their love language. Like, you're taking an interest, and I can see their frustration. You can spend hours texting or speak to your guys about football or about this, but when I ask you a question or something that's important to me or the home, I'm getting limited answers, or I can just get the impression whereby let's end this topic because I'm not interested in it. So I do. So what the point I'm making is that men do have the same capability as women in terms of communicating, but it's what we choose to. It's a choice. And I just believe that we just, once again, the script that's been given to us is that it's not, we don't do it. It's not important, but it is important.
What percentage of men would you say tend to seek help, counseling or therapy or that kind of thing compared to women?
Okay, we're taking out couple counseling. I would say in terms of percentages, 80-20, 80% women, 20% men. And some of those men would have been through me working with them in couple counseling, and then we realise that they need counseling or individual counseling outside of the couple therapy. Often when men come to me, I call it shotgun counseling, whereby the wife or the missus would say, unless you get this sorted out, I'm leaving. And then it's like penny drop, okay, I need counseling, I need help, I need support. But in terms of willingly and thinking, I need help, or I'm struggling, or I'm stuck, or anything like that, and say I need counseling, no. Very minimal. Very minimal.
Yeah, it's not something I would imagine that the guys would get together over a beer and talk about their counseling session. The same as women sitting around having a glass of wine would talk about their counseling session.
However, there are now guys, it's going to be more known on the island, and people know what I do. They know I speak often, passionately about men and mental health, where they would recommend to me, say, Gary, my friend is struggling. Can I give them your details? So that's happening more now. They themselves may be struggling and may not be asking for it directly, but at least they're thinking about this is a possible option, rather than before it would have been a no-go area.
Do you think perhaps we're at a bridge generation from my generation to, for example, my son's generation? There's this bridge generation now that is moving away from the old ways and moving into the new ways?
I would say yes, they're probably it's not as strong as when we were growing up. However, I remember working with a young man, he's age 13, and he's struggling with him. He's expressing his emotions. And he said, I'm not allowed to cry. And I said, where did you get that from? And he said, from my dad. And he needed to cry, but he was more determined not to cry than express his emotion. But I was not shocked at his exaggeration. I was still surprised that his generation, and he's got that script whereby boys don't cry, men don't cry.
Yeah, I guess that comes from the expressions like man up, right? Like, where did those things come from? I think myself, even when talking to girlfriends when I was growing up, hey, man up. It's just one of those casual off the cuff remarks, but it really does have further reach when it comes to little boys.
Man up, grow a pair, all those comments which makes you think, okay, this is what it means to be a man. And I remember having a conversation with my 3 daughters, possibly 2 years ago, and about the words us men use towards women. Don't be such a girl, and much more derogatory words than that. So it then shows that women are inferior to men, that if you act like a girl, you're not a man, because we're above that. And it's it's so wrong. But I was part of that. And it wasn't until later on and having told you actually listen to your language and how to use it. How is this ever right? We come from women. Most cases, we adore our mums or women in our life, yet we think expression is, you're a girl, you're the other word I'm thinking of, which I won't say on this. And it's in a derogatory word. And women say it as well. Women will say to guys, oh, don't be such a girl, don't be such an old man up. And you're thinking, well, if that's the language you're hearing in the scripts once more, how would the younger generation go to change? Because that is still being reinforced. And it goes back to earlier we were talking about expression emotions here, whereby if a man cried in front of his wife, shall we say, and initially you may get the support and emotion, oh, don't worry, the arm around the shoulder. But if he was continually doing that, I've had conversations with women where they suddenly start thinking subconsciously, okay, I can't depend on my man to be strong. I now need to be strong for him. And then the dynamics start changing. And somewhere along that line, they start to lose a bit of respect, not deliberately, but you're no longer that protector because I've seen that emotion in you and I'm possibly seeing it now too often. So where does this fit into our relationship or the family dynamic? And so then the guy senses that and then he puts that brick wall up again because has it been received well? So I remember this book called Daring Greatly by Brené Brown, which many people know. And he said to her, well, I broke down in front of my wife and the reception he got was the opposite of what he needed. So he said, well, I would never express my emotion to a female again.
It's almost conditioning, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're conditioned to react a certain way towards a man, and a man is conditioned to react a certain way towards a woman. And we don't look at each other as humans. We look at each other as our specific gender. And that's unfortunate. One of the things I wanted to ask you as well is, will you be, maybe perhaps in topics that you have throughout the shows coming, will you have book recommendations or research articles that people can go to if they want to look into something, if something strikes a chord within that show that they can look into it further themselves?
Yes, most certainly. And definitely books, but I'd say more popular books at the moment because of time and how people receive information out. Certain podcasts, audios where guys can listen to it in the car on the way to work whilst they're working, whereby there's so much valuable information out there, good information, lots of harmful information also. But yeah, there's a library that I've built up where it's specifically for men, whether it's in relationships, whether it's your identity issues with your dad or your mum, issues with your children, men who are estranged from their children and struggling with that. And there's a space that's needed because they feel it as well. And the typical story is the guys that do care about their children, they get a hard time from the mother of the children in terms of contact with the children. And the guys that don't give a damn are the ones that like say, yeah, open door, come see the child if you want. And that's a real struggle. And we know that generally the legal system's in support of the mother. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's where do they carry all that? And it's no coincidence that the highest suicide rate is among men in their 40s and 50s. And that's often when the pressure's there, it's all bottled up over those years. And our bodies don't lie. It can only take so much stress. And if it's not released, it will do us.
Yeah.
So yes, a long way to answer your question. There are valuable resources out there. And just going back, Ria, I do want to say that in the counselling room, I have had men cry. I've had men, to use a West Indian phrase, bawl their eyes out, where it's just all come out. Or the pain, that's what it comes down to, Ria, pain. Pain doesn't know gender. Pain doesn't discriminate. We all have experienced pain. And if it's unresolved pain, it's like poison. To me, it's worse than that C word, cancer. And it's men have pain, experience pain as any other human being. And we don't have that space where we don't talk about it or can't release it. It will damage us. So when I see men pain, it's also giving that dignity that this is okay. And they feel safe trying, just get it out. I don't see you as less of a man or more of a man. You're a human being, first and foremost.
And I think, too, that men have been taught to express their pain through anger and fighting and using their fists and things like that. crying and releasing those emotions that way is a much healthier way to deal with any pain that you may have.
Yes, that was my way. And years ago, when I started to see a therapist, and I wasn't sure why, it was recommended to me. And after me opening up, it took after 4 sessions for me to actually start becoming vulnerable. And I recognized that anger had dominated my life, but it was disguised through my competitive spirit, through sport in particular, even academia. I always needed to be the best. So I realized that once I achieved that, or whatever goals I set for myself, it never was enough. It didn't fulfill me. So I then looked for another challenge. But the root of my pain, became more clear to me, although I believe I knew subconsciously, that the root of my anger was towards my dad not being there. But rather than confronting that, and we're talking 30, 40 years ago, you did have therapy wasn't an option, or counseling. Right. I experienced as a child, it should have been the first place for me, or one of the first options for healing and recovery. So I just did what I do best then, and to take it out, use it in sport. I also reflected back whereby when I used to have childminders, often ended up in fights with their children. And so my mum couldn't leave me with anybody long because somehow my anger would spill out. So I was often in fights and things. But it was pain. Once more, it was pain that I was carrying, but nobody back then, no fault of my mother or my family around me, didn't know how best to, didn't recognize it, the depth of it. And then, right, how do we help Gary Napier? And that's why it's in that therapy room and understanding more myself, what I was going through, I then began to really develop a heart for other men, because I knew men had similar experiences, maybe different causes. And I thought, I don't want this, because the consequences are huge in terms of family breakdown, addiction, financial separation from children. And really, it's just when I see men, and even when I look at myself in the mirror, I don't just see the adult in front of me, I see that little boy. I'm thinking, what does that little boy need? What is he asking the adult man to say, please, I need this now, help me? Because unless I'm healed, regardless of you being grown and an adult, we can't be free. So that little boy is crying out to say, help me, as he was saying to me, Gary, this cannot go on any further, otherwise you're going to lose everything. I need help. The little boy was screaming to me, I need help.
You are available worldwide for counseling if somebody feels comfortable and they feel like you are someone that they could work with. You do online sessions anywhere in the world, right?
Yes. Sites in Dubai, New Zealand, so wherever. Obviously, fixing with the time difference, the time zone, but yes. As you said, I'm available worldwide. I'm available for men.
I think that's wonderful. And it's something that really hasn't been addressed. Mental health has really come to the forefront, I would say, in the past 3 or 4 years, especially since the pandemic. And we do touch on men's mental health, but it's just the very tip of the iceberg. And there's not a lot of mainstream anything out there where men can go just to gather advice. You've got to specifically look for it. So I think this is really important. And I do encourage everybody out there to definitely tune in, and we'll make sure to let everybody know when the shows are going to be airing. Gary, I want to say thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's a very important subject. It's a subject that will not go away, should not go away. And very finally, so people know my heart where I'm coming from. Every society, every region has its issue. But I believe at the root of every issue is the man. And I always firmly believe if we fix the men become right, then families will be restored, societies will be restored, nations will be restored, and countries will be restored. But at the root of it is the man. And so even when I work with women, there's often a man that's brought them there, whether it's the dad, boyfriend, husband, issue. We've got to get the men right. We really do, because we should be the foundation, not more important than a woman, but the foundation. But if the foundation is unstable, then how can we expect everything else to be right? It doesn't work.
We'll provide all of Gary's details below this interview when it airs. And if you feel the need to get some counseling, please do reach out. Gary, thank you for joining us, and I really look forward to your show.
This is speaking to you.
You've been watching another edition at Yacht Crew Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I have been your host. We'll see you again next time.